What's going on, YouTube? This is Master Luke 5 coming at you live from the PlayStation Network. All right, today I want to talk about the upcoming changes in February to the Division. I've read the patch notes, I've seen some online videos from the PTS, and honestly, I want to give some of my thoughts about what I think is important and what I think is just not worth mentioning. So I'm only going to concentrate in this video about the PvP aspects of the game. The PvE aspects, when you go read the notes about the changes, I mean, it's just buffs, right? They're giving you buffs for a lot of different things. I don't care really much about that. If you're a PvE player, just know that you can go read the patch notes. You're gonna get the buffs. The PvP aspects is what's more interesting to me. So I wanted to give my thoughts about what I consider the most important changes and how I think it's going to affect PvP. Whether you think differently, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But this is how I think about it. This is how I'm going to prepare for the changes that are coming, okay? So let me highlight a few things that I think are important. Number one, the number one thing that I think is important for PvP is the instant medkit change. Okay? The instant medkit change, where you are now going to be able to tap your medkit button and it will give you 25% armor instantly with a cooldown of 5 seconds. Okay, how is this going to affect PvP? Well, people are going to be fighting, and now you have an instant 25% armor medkit that you're using in the fight, which is meant for clutch, right? That type of fighting means that you don't pop your medkit right away. You wait till the person is shooting you and you're shooting them, and right before you die, you're popping 25%, right? Or right before you think you're gonna die, you're popping 25% to give you that extra boost edge over your opponent. That's how PvP is gonna play out with the 25s. However, let's broaden that conversation. When you pop your 25% medkit, you only have 4 medkits. As far as I know, they are not increasing the medkit storage capacity. So if you pop a medkit in a clutch fight and you only have 4 medkits every 5 seconds, you can potentially lose all your medkits in 20 to 30 seconds in one fight. Potentially, that's what's going to happen. So just think about that. Yeah, you may win that fight, in 30 seconds you're down to 0 medkits, and guess what, the players are going to come back from that checkpoint, okay, and you have 0 medkits, you sitting on shit. So will it change PvP? Yes, people are going to be popping those medkits. However, it's not like the firewall medkit is not going to be in play, because if I have the choice of not popping the 25 versus popping a full 200% medkit, people are still going to run to the corner to try to pop the full 225% medkit. That's going to be their first go-to. However, if they're getting pushed in that corner and they see that they can't finish that medkit, they're going to let go of the button and pop a 25, roll out, shoot you, strafe away to try to get another full medkit, because who wouldn't want the 200% firewall medkit versus the 25? The 25 is going to be used in clutch periods where you got 3, 4, 5 players running around strafing each other, right, and popping 25s to see who's going to win that fight, right? That's where that's going to come into play. But people will still prioritize trying to get that full medkit, and if they can't, though, their secondary backup will be, put a decoy down, pop your 25, get away, strafe away, whatever. That's what's going to happen in PvP. Is it a good change? 100% it's a good change. Absolutely, because now you're giving PvP players the ability to actually, have an extra situation of armor where I can outstrafe you, I can outplay you. And right now we don't have that option. We're just sitting ducks in a corner trying to pop a fucking medkit. So PvP will change in terms of the speed of medkit popping, the speed of the fight, right? People are still gonna be um, looking for that full medkit, but if they don't get it, they're gonna fight you, right? They're gonna keep popping at 25. But this brings up a bit of a question. It brings up a question of, well, shit, if I could lose all my medkits potentially in the span of one fight, what the hell are we gonna do when they come out of the checkpoint again? You have no medkits, they got full medkit inventory. How are you gonna play that? Are you going to be able to keep your manhunt, or are you going to be able to now? You basically going to say, shit, I'm out of med kits. We need to go run around the map to get med kits now. You see what I'm saying? So it cause a lot of manhunt groups to now move away from the checkpoint and run around to try to get med kits? Yeah, yeah, they're gonna be running around trying to get med kits now. Um, which is kind of fucking, I mean, that's gonna become the reality because they're gonna burn through their medkits, and if they don't burn through their medkits in the first fight, they're gonna burn through their medkits by the time the second fight happens. By the time the second wave of the players come out of that checkpoint, they're gonna burn through their medkits. I mean, it's just the reality. So you're gonna have medkit runs now. However, anyway, so that's the first big change that I see playing out, and how I see that dynamic is what I just explained. Number one, people are still gonna go for the full med kit. If they can't, they're gonna pop their 25s in the hopes that they can pop their full when they get a chance, and they're just gonna keep fighting it out, basically. How does it change in 1v1? Oh, man. In 1v1, it makes 1v1s way more interesting now because it's no longer about just catharsis and the healing cloud. Now you're going to have those clutch medkit moments like I beat you because your instant medkit was on cooldown at that very time, or vice versa. Mine was on cooldown. You popped yours and then you beat me because I had no more armor or whatever, right? Though that I like that change because now it introduces that whole 1v1 mentality of like who pops their med kits exactly at what time, who's better at DPS, who's better at strafing, right? Who's better at headshots, and who's better at popping their med kits. The timing of the reload, the timing of the med kit. That makes me excited about 1v1 fights now, okay? Just to be clear, I like that change. Okay, enough about the medkits. That's how I see the medkit system playing out in PvP. The number two change in PvP, which I think is bullshit. Okay, I don't agree with this change, and if the developers would hear me out for a second, if they listen to this, right? You are upping the go rogue timer from 0.75 seconds, which is 3/4 of a second, to 5 fucking seconds. And I emphasize the word fucking seconds. If you remember, in the Occupied DZs in the beginning, you never even had to go rogue. You just shot people, okay? You decided to change that because people were getting shot in the back and things like that. Fine. Now we have to go rogue in both DZs, actually hold the button. Can you imagine? I'm a player that now is looking at a group going rogue for 5 seconds. I mean, I'm staring at you with your little red circle for 5 seconds. I'm like, oh, they're about to go rogue. Let me put my turret down. Let me get here. Let me get my shock ammo ready. You're allowing players to get ready for the fight now for 5 fucking seconds? Isn't the point of PvP, and always has been the point of PvP, is that it's a high risk, high reward environment? Which means if you go into the dark zone, anybody can fucking try to kill you at any time, and you don't have to be prepared for it, right? If you're distracted, that's the whole point of PvP, the element of surprise. There's 4 people extracting at the extraction site. I got 3 of my players on this side. I'm the sniper on this side. We go rogue. I pop you in the head. Shit happens in the dark zone. That's the whole point of a dark zone. You're telling me I gotta wait 5 seconds now to try to shoot somebody who's running away from me? And let me tell you something else, developers. You're just making it worse for that player. They're about to see their doom for 5 seconds instead of that 1 second. Okay. In reality, you're playing this bullshit game of trying to give the person time to run away or set themselves up for success. But in reality, it's not gonna work. That person, is probably still gonna die. They're gonna be cornered. The players who are going rogue already have a strategy to go rogue on that second, right? In that moment, they already know what they're gonna do with their competition. So I think it's the dumbest thing for them to do. 5 seconds is way too long. If you wanted to increase it to 2 seconds. Okay, 2 seconds, doubling the rogue timer. So from like, let's say 1 second to 2 seconds. Okay, fine. Not a big change. Giving them a little bit of moment to realize what's happening. 5 fucking seconds. You're the dumbest developers in the game if you introduce this. If you don't change this in the PTS, right? You're making this game too casual in PvP. Okay? You're making the game too casual. 5 seconds, I disagree with. Moving on. Moving on. Next change that I think is noteworthy to mention is Unbreakable. The talent Unbreakable. People are bitching, oh, they're nerfing Unbreakable. But when you look at the nerf in PvP, the regular Unbreakable is being nerfed from 50% down to 40% armor. That's not the biggest change in the world because 50 to 40, okay, 10% less armor on break. So a couple more bars you're not going to have basically, but you still have Unbreakable with 40% armor. So that's not the biggest change in the world. Perfectly Unbreakable for those shotgun players, right? For the shotgun builds, you're nerfing it from 55% to 5%, 50%, right? So you're only taking away 5% from the Perfectly Unbreakable. The person who's running that shotgun build is getting 5% less, but they're still getting 50% of their armor back. What does that do to PvP Unbreakable? Nothing. Nothing. It doesn't change Unbreakable. It just lowers it a little bit, so you have a little less armor to work with when it procs. Are people gonna still run Unbreakable? Fuck yeah, they're still gonna run Unbreakable because it's still one of the best PvP talents on a chess piece, right? Alongside Spotter and alongside other talents. However, this is the last thing I'll mention about this. It brings a conversation into another talent, right? Because if you take as a whole the fact that now you could pop instant medkits and the fact that you potentially don't need to use Unbreakable because the instant medkits work with another talent called Efficient. So some people will opt to, instead of running Unbreakable, they will run Efficient on a chess piece, and it kind of brings Efficient into the conversation now. Because if you're telling me I could pop instant medkits every 5 seconds and Efficient allows that chance to remain, I could potentially have not just 4 medkits, I could have 8, 10. Shit, it could be endless if I get lucky, right? I mean, eventually you're probably going to run out, but every time you think about it this way, every time you kill a player, there's a chance where you're picking up a medkit from that player in addition to the Efficient. So, because of the instant medkits, there is a potential that now people will run Efficient. It becomes viable because you're going to be getting those medkits back, right? You're not wasting them. So that's an interesting component that I'm looking at. Should I run Efficient and over Unbreakable in certain situations? Well, let's just say I'm going to have both builds. I'm going to test Efficient and I'm going to test Unbreakable, right? The Perfectly Efficient, that's another argument to be had about should you run the perfect, should you run the regular. Well, let's just say for me, it's bringing Efficient back into the picture, okay? Definitely you're going to have some players running Efficient, if not at least testing it. But in PvP, if you look at the scheme of things, the majority of players will still probably run Unbreakable and Spotter and all the other things that we're running because Unbreakable, the nerf is not that significant where it's no longer viable, right? So I don't see this changing with Unbreakable. I think everybody's still gonna run Unbreakable for the most part. Okay, let's talk about the changes to the guns for a little bit, and I'm only gonna mention some of the main changes that actually matter. The first big change with the guns is the exotic guns can now be re-rolled to get damage to targets out of cover. So for example, on my Eagle Bearer, I can now put damage to targets out of cover. The Eagle Bearer, right, and all the exotics that don't have damage to targets out of cover, you can re-roll them. Will people re-roll them? Absolutely, yes, 100%. You're going to put damage to targets out of cover on everything that you can for the exotics. The Saint Elmo already has it. The other change with the Eagle Bear is that they're adding 50 RPM, so it's going to bring it up to 800. Does that help the Eagle Bear? Yes. Does it make it stronger? Talent aside from the Saint Elmo, no. People are still gonna fucking use the Saint Elmo because the Saint Elmo is 850, right? And essentially damage to targets out of cover. Will some people use the Eagle Bearer like myself with like a striker build because I'm good at getting headshot kills? Yeah, I'm gonna use the Eagle Bearer. I rarely use the Saint Elmo in PvP. In fact, I don't use it in PvP at all at this point. I don't use it one because I don't like to shock people. I rather just out. I want to beat you by strafing, or I want to beat you by outplaying you, or I don't use shock bullets. If you use it, fine. That's up to you, right? Whatever you want to do, that's what you do. You're gonna hear my mouth if you talk shit to me and you shock me, but at the end of the day, I think this is overpowered anyway, because they give you a 70 round mag with 850 RPM and shock bullets. I mean, this gun is fucking. How can you make a gun that you give out in a season? You give us, you give a gun out to the masses that you can get in a season, but there's still people who don't have the Eagle Bearer, right, which is the original OG exotic AR that everybody was running. You can't get this gun easily, but this one you gave away, which is better, and the majority of people are using this. I mean, this makes no sense. These types of decisions that they made, somebody needs to get slapped in the face over there because they are making it way too easy, right? Way too easy. But anyway, this game is already reaching its lifespan, so whatever. They're just giving it out at this point. Anyway, so the big change, yeah, Ouroboros, you already have damage, but like for example, the Scorpio, you'll be able to roll damage targets out of cover and all the other exotics, right? Most of them already have it. You know, my Mantis has it, right? So most of them have it, but will it make your gun stronger? Hell yeah. For the rest of the changes, all the rest of the ARs, your G36s, your whatever bullshit other AR that's in the game, whatever buffs that they're doing will not change the existing meta over ARs. First of all, the FAMAS is still the FAMAS. You're not going to change that. It's still going to be the king AR in terms of high DPS damage for an AR. However, the Kingbreaker, I don't care what they do to the flatline. Generally, even if they nerf the flatline, Kingbreaker is still the Kingbreaker, and the Black Market AKM is still the Black Market AKM. You're not going to make people change these guns just because you're upping the RPM of a G36 and adding 10% more weapon damage or whatever it is. Nobody's going to use that shit. You know it. I know it. We're still going to use the high damage DPS, you know, TBKs, the black markets. All that is still going to happen. So there's no change to that. I don't see it unless they make some drastic changes to, you know, based on the PTS. There's no change to that. Okay? So we covered a lot there so far in terms of what I think. The next thing that I want to talk about is the corner glitch. Okay, so the corner glitch is no longer viable. You cannot just sit in a corner with a shield popping regular shots anymore in PvP. That's done. Okay, and probably in PvE as well. So no more of those people sitting in the corner with the shield and trying to hit you in the head with the Regulus build from a corner where you can't even push them. That's done. And you know what? Good, because you shouldn't be able to do that in the first place. Right? I mean, it is technically a glitch, right? It's technically something that's not intended where you're shooting from the corner. I don't believe that you're going to have that same option anymore in PvP. Did I think that it was cheesy? No, right? I don't think it's, well, to some degree, it's using an advantage that anyone can do. That's the thing. So I don't think it's necessarily cheesy. I just think that the way this game is played is about, you know, outplaying your opponents and movement and stuff like that. Sitting in a corner with a shield with the strongest pistol in the game and just trying to pop people in the head, I don't know. That's kind of like if that's how you really want to play the game, fine, but whatever. You can't do that no more after the changes. So that's a quick change. The next thing is armor regen. Okay, armor regen. They're changing a lot of the 2-piece and 3-piece bonuses that you get with the gear pieces. I looked over the grid. All your walkers and your Seskas and your Grupo, your Fenris, your Sokolov, in terms of PvP, there is no major impact. The changes that they're making to those pieces are not in any way significant that will change how PvP is played with those pieces. People will still use those pieces, okay? So you don't have to worry about all those. The ones that you do have to take into consideration now are number 1, Gila. For 3-piece Gila, they're giving you 3% armor regen. And for 2-piece Golan gear, they're giving you 2% armor regen. I saw a guy on the PTS with 8% armor regen, folks. 8% armor regen. How did he get 8%? 3-piece Gila, 2-piece Golan with Memento backpack, which gives you 3% at full stacks. That's 8% armor fucking regen with potentially 2 million armor to 2.1 million armor. 8% armor regen combined with efficient, combined with instant met kits is beyond tank in PvP. That is a tank. That is a tank of fucking World War II that can never be destroyed. I mean, that is ridiculous. 8%? Are you kidding me? With efficient and memento stacks like flags and instant med kits? You're crazy. What the hell? This guy's floating. Anyway, they need to reconsider that. So in terms of PvP, okay, get your Gila pieces ready because Gila is going to become a lot of viable for tank fights. Okay, especially a Gila that you can only get during the Christmas time, which is now. So you better start farming that loot goblin to get the chill out mask. If you don't have a Gila chill out mask, get your ass to the loot goblin because you're gonna need it like now. Because come February, this will become the best in slot piece for your first piece of Gila on any armor regen build because it gives you 2 extra mod slots. So it only makes sense that you would run potentially a Gila mask unless people want to run for an armor regen build, something else for the mask, but I don't think so. I think the Gila Chill Out mask with a potentially Gila chest piece, right, or maybe like a Fenris or something like that, because you don't want to give up the holster and potentially the knee pads. But if you're gonna run Memento with 2 piece going, so you run Gila, right? Let's say Gila, right, and then 2 piece going with a Memento will give you 8% armor regen. 8% armor regen. Guys, 8% armor regen with 25% armor medkit is beyond fucking ridiculous. This is gonna impact tank builds in PvP. Like, people will be fucking tanky as fuck. You're not gonna kill them easily with momentum. You're just not. You better phone them, shock them, status them to death because they are not gonna fucking die. Yeah, my thoughts is, well, if they don't change it, this is the reality. That's one of the first builds I'm making is an armor reject type build, just to fuck with people in the DZ. But anyway, keep that in mind. So get your Gila pieces ready, get your Golem pieces ready with crit crit. That's what I'm doing. I'm storing all my Golems from my other characters, getting everything ready for that armor reject build. Because it's coming, baby, it's coming. All right, next one. We talked about that. Um, the only other thing that I want to talk about is the status effects. Pretty much the status effects in terms of shock and foam. The bleed and stuff like that, they added a whole gimmick where if you're standing in place, you're bleeding less. Whatever. It's the dumbest thing they can do. Bleeding is bleeding. You're still bleeding, okay? The shock. You will no longer be able to. Well, you can still shock players, but they're not going to be shocked in place. They're going to have slow movement speed, but they can't shoot you back during the time that you shock them. So to me, it's this very small nerf to shock, which I think is required because everyone is running that stupid shock, Saint Elmo. But the fact that you'll be able to move a little bit, but you can't shoot back, it's a good change. But I don't know if it's enough because the movement speed is like bleed, right? It's like bleed. It's like you're kind of like moving slow, but you can't shoot back. Um, we'll see how this plays out. I don't think. Well, it's a good change, but I don't think it's gonna affect how people play with the Saint Elmo. People will still use the Saint Elmo, and they'll still hit you with shock to lower your movement speed, which is gonna be good for those people who are running away manhunt, where you can shoot them from a distance and at least slow them down. So that's a good change. So we'll see how that plays out. The foam, if you foam somebody, they will be in place. They will still be stuck in place. The only difference is you will have 10% less damage to them when you foam them. Okay, so you're doing 10% less damage. Does it change whether they die or not? No, they're probably going to still die if you foam them, and enough people are shooting them. So I don't see the difference in that. Okay, and that's pretty much it for most of the PvP changes that I wanted to talk about. The only other PvE change that I want to talk about is the NSA tech from Descent. So thank God, but the developers have come to their senses and they're adding a vendor for the Descent mode, right? Descent mode is here. If you play Descent, you get what's called NSA tech. And NSA tech is not easy to get. You have to play for hours and hours and hours to get NSA tech. Where the hell is this damn NSA tech? I always lose it in the mix of everything. I think it's in the beginning. So NSA Tech, they're adding a vendor. Here it is. They're adding a vendor where you can buy named item caches as well as exotic caches using NSA Tech. I know people that have over 100,000 NSA tech, and it's not easy to get. You have to play for hours and days to gather this NSA tech. I have 24,000. That is considered decent, right? There's friends of mine who have 60K, 100K, over 100K. Think about if they add an exotic cache in the vendor where even if it costs 100 NSA tech to get one exotic cache, it, my friend who has like 100,000 NSA tech, he's gonna be swimming in exotic components. He's never gonna need to farm that shit as long as he's playing Descent. So I want to point this out because people who don't play Descent and you're not playing for hours gathering your NSA tech and you haven't done this, you're limited to getting your components from Countdown, Control Points, or the DZ, which is the best place right now, the Dark Zone. But for a player like me who does play Descent, okay, I'm gonna be swimming basically because by the time February comes, I'm gonna be probably playing Descent and I'm gonna be up to 50, 60, 70, 80 potentially NSA tech, right? 80,000. I'm just gonna be able to go to the vendor and buy all the fucking caches I want for exotic components, combined with the fact now that they've lowered the exotic component requirement to up your guns and gear. So right now it was over 100 components that you need, like 130 something components just to get your gun to level 24, expertise 24. With the new changes, they're allowing players to go from expertise 11 all the way to 24 with only 42 exotic components. That is a quarter of what the seasoned players have needed to do to get their shit to 24, okay? You're basically going to allow a seasoned player like me to have all their shit maxed out, even the gear pieces to 24 with this change. And then you're allowing the noobs, the people just coming in, to basically get there quicker so they can have some sense of level of fairness in the fight, even though it doesn't matter if you're expertise 24. If you don't know how to fight in PvP, you're going to die anyway, okay? So it is what it is. I just wanted to point out that that's the only change that I'm looking forward to about the Descent NSA tokens, because that's going to help a lot of people if they play Descent. With that said, that's my thoughts. Take everything I say with your own salt, you know, your grain of salt, however you think of things. That's the way I see things. Peace out. Master out.